little jobs. Right, what I've done is I've straightened out my piece of wire and I flattened the end. It's like a little paddle so that it will so if you can see that, yeah, like a little paddle, so that it actually spreads it out. There's more surface there to go into contact with the back of the bezel. And what I've done is I've propped it up with 2 pennies so that it's lifted up, it's in perfect position. But what I'm not going to do is flux it and put solder on there. I'm going to just sweat solder tiny little bit of, because if I put it on there, it's going to leave a mark where I sit it at the side, and I don't really want that. It's more cleaning up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of flux and a little bit of solder, get it to flow on there. Then I'll pickle it, and then I'll put it back on there, heat it up, and in theory, the solder should flow and join those two together. So that's what I'm going to do. If I can get my words out at all. So let's see. So if I just put a little bit of flux on there, if you can see me, so I'll try and do it over here. Will that be better? Is that a bit closer for you? Okay. Right, so that's got the flux on. Let's take that out of the way. Get a little bit of solder. Don't want a lot. It's only a tiny little paddle. Stick that on there. That's it. Then I shall heat up this bit first, so that's hot, and then I will go up and melt the solder. I'm not actually sure you'll see this. Let's see if I can bring you a little bit closer. I'm sorry if you can't see the solder, but there's the flux all bubbled up. It's getting warmer. Now I'm going to heat up the whole lot. There it is. I'm not sure if you saw that. It is a tiny, tiny little thing. It did flow on there. That's not going to go with it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is pickle that and just clean it up, and I'll set it up the way you saw before. So I'll come back and let you see how I do that. Okay, that's all pickled now. I've got it set back up. I've fluxed the back of the bezel, and I've fluxed the new solder that's on that little paddle, and I've propped it up on my 2 pennies. So now let's see if we can do the necessary. Obviously the bezel is a big area. It's the bezel we've got to heat up first. So let's go in and have a go at that. Get my pick in case I need to just press that down. The flux has just made it ride up a little bit. Quick, it's done. Wow. Wow. Right. I'll just let it cool off for a second before I pick it up, so that it doesn't all fall apart. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. All done. All soldered. So in the pickle for that now. Can you see it? I can't make my mind up if that's in or out of focus. I think it's out of focus. Anyway, it's on there, so I'll go and drop it in the pickle, and I'll come back. And I've got my little jump ring here. Let me show you. That little half a jump ring. I've got that ready. Gosh, so tiny. got my little half a jump ring to solder on the back so that it will go round the loop okay. But what we want to do before we put this on is solder on one of the bezels for the amber, then slide this on, and then attach the other bezel for the amber. So I've got that ready anyway, so that can go on there. I've got it all fluxed, so when that comes out of the pickle, we can then solder that on while we're in the mood for soldering. So I'll leave that there while that's in the pickle, and I'll come back to you. Okay, I'm going to show you now how to get this, or how I get this little tiny half jump ring soldered onto there. I want that soldered with one part of the jump ring on the little paddle and one half on the wire. So my hand might shake because it's ever so delicate. But anyway, let's have a go. Excuse me if my hand starts shaking, I'll do my best. See if I can find somewhere to prop my hand up nicely. So don't put it on yet, heat up that. Hold the half jump ring in the vicinity of the heat so it's getting warmed up. Let's warm up this great big lump of silver at the end first, and then we'll see what we can do. I forgot to say, I have sweat soldered some solder to the end of this jump ring. So now I'm going to put it on there and see what we can do. Go. That paddle did move a little bit then, but I think we might be all right. So what I've got, if you can see it, I've got my little paddle on the back, little half jump ring to slide onto the circular piece, and let's pickle that. So that's how I do it. It's not the easiest because it's got to be so precise. I find that it does make my hand shake because I'm trying so hard to get it in the right place without melting everything. But it can be done, and it's practice. So that was the first time, went on first time. So you're not always that lucky. It's practice. So off to the pickle again, and then a little bit of cleaning up, I think. And I'll come back when we've done that. Okie doke, that's all pickled now. That's all on there. And how it goes is like this. That slides through there. Sorry, I can't see because I'm trying to let you see as well. Let me just get it right. So that slides through there, like that. Like that. Or the other way, whichever way you want it. You can put it on either way. Actually, that's on the wrong way for me because I had that side down there. So I'd turn it round. But that's the way it slides, and it's not too slack. It's not too loose. It's not too tight. It just moves nicely. In fact, it does actually, because it does catch a little bit, hardly at all, but that's because the wire's twisted. But that, if I can, I'm not letting you see this very well at all. So it goes like that actually. So yeah, there we go. I'll take that off because we don't want that on yet. So yeah, I'll be back. Okay, this is how far I've got now. Managed to solder that one on there, so that's got quite a nice sweep to it. Now I've got to put this on before I can solder that end on, otherwise I'm not going to get it on. And I think, where have I put it there? I don't know. I'm very tempted to put this one, how did I have it? Maybe on the inside like that. So it's going opposite ways. But I've yet to decide on that one. But anyway, so what I'm doing next is, let's work out which way it's got to go on, is slide that on there like that, and now I'm going to go and play around with it and see which way I actually think I like it best for there. And then actually that's quite nice, isn't it? I don't know if you can see that too. Quite like it like that. My first idea was to have it like that, but actually I think I do quite like it there, and there's plenty of space to solder it on there as well, although I'm going to have to be careful that I leave enough space to solder it so that there's enough metal to push over the stone. But if I flatten that down, I should be all right with that. But yeah, so still making decisions. I'll go and solder it on one way or another, and I'll come back to you. Okay, we're all done there. So I decided to go that way. There we are. What I'm doing now is I'm just smoothing that. This one's okay on this side. It actually goes flat onto the back of that bezel, but because I've tucked this inside, I'm having to smooth that out because it's a little bit rough there on that edge. So I'm just gonna smooth that out, and then what I'm gonna do is give it a good old polish. So I'm just gonna, all I'll be doing now is at this point is sanding and polishing, and then it just leaves then for the stones to be set. So I'll come back to you when I've done the sanding and polishing, because it's a little bit like watching paint dry, sanding and polishing. So, and I'm sure you've seen it before. So there you go. I'm quite pleased with how it's coming. But look at the difference. There's the nice little new one. And look at this chunky thing that we had before. It's massive in comparison, isn't it? This is such a dainty one, and I hope it's going to go on something like, actually, let me lift the camera up and let's have a little play, shall we? Yeah, let's have a little play. There we go. Right, so I'm hoping that this, when it's all nicely polished, yes, look at that, straight in to fine knitwear, and then spot that under there. Move that round. It'll be everything will be a lot smoother once it's polished. A little bit rough at the moment, and that's how it'll go. Oh, it's much nicer than I even expected. So there we go. Polish, set the stones. I'll do the polishing and then I'll come back. There we go. It's a little bit more shiny now. I'm going to set the stones, then I shall put some platinol on it, which is it's like liver of sulphur. It just gives everything a patina, but I want to set the stones first and then decide where I want the patina to be. I'm going to set this first. Let's try it. See if it still fits. Yes, did you hear the click? Oh, beautiful. Look at that. That's lovely. What I'm going to do is I've got a wooden dowel here, and I'm going to start off setting it with a wooden dowel, because if I slip, it doesn't mark the stone. So that's my next thing, and I'll come back to you when I've done that. Okay, there's the turquoise set. It needs burnishing, a little bit of tidying up, but it's time to call it a day now. I was hoping to get this completely finished by tonight, but it's not to be, and I don't want to rush it, so a little bit more polishing I've got to do. The 2 ambers to set, and a bit of burnishing round there, but I can do all the burnishing at the same time when I've set the ambers. But I absolutely adore that stone. I think it's beautiful and I'm highly delighted with it. So, see you on the morrow. Here we go again. Right, what I've done is I've given this a good old polish and I've put it next to this one. If you see the difference in that one and that one, obviously, other than size, is that it's got patina on it. So what I'm going to do is, before I set these amber, is put some patina on this where I think it'll look nice, which is pretty much everywhere actually. I'm using my normal platinol that I always use, and I'm putting it on with a brush. So excuse my fingers, I've been polishing. More on than that. So this will all go black, and then I'll polish it and take the tips off, take the highlights off. I want to keep it away from those bezels to save me having to clean it up afterwards. That goes down there. I want to put it on here. I like putting it on with a brush rather than dumping it all into dumping it all into the liquid really. I much prefer, it's much more controllable if you put it on with a brush. Let's move that round a little bit. So we can do here. It's really therapeutic, this is. I'm not going to do that stick down there, and I'm not going to do these two bezels. I've done that one round there, and then I'm going to turn it over and do on the back. I'm not doing on the back of that bezel. There is a little bit that's gone off on it, but I'll clean that off. All I want to do on the back is the twisted wire. Right, that's looking pretty. So I have dabbed it in a few places I don't want it, but it's not much, and it's unavoidable really. So what I'm going to do is just leave that there for a few minutes, and then I'll just go and polish the top so that hopefully we'll get a nice, this one shines, because it's thicker I think. This one shines just beautifully. Look at that. It's gorgeous, isn't it? But it's just that little bit chunky to wear in my sweaters. Needs to be in a nice heavy knit scarf in my opinion. Or actually I've got a knitted poncho that I wear a lot in the winter or mid sort of seasons, and it would look lovely on that as well. I never thought of and just thought about that, but I shall use it for that now I have thought about it. So there we go. I'm going to wash my brush and leave that to dry. Okay, I've left that drying for a few minutes. I've got here a little polishing cloth. Let's put that out of the way. Let's turn that over so it's not so messy. And I'm just going to rub over, and then I'll show you. I'm just going to rub over with this polishing cloth. Do you know, this has been sitting out. I just used it because it was sitting on my bench, but it wasn't in a little bag, and I think it's just completely dried up. Okay. So let's have a look. What else can I find? Hang on, I'll just get a proper one and see if that will be better. You see, they come in these little bags and they feel dry. That's why I thought that one would work, but clearly isn't going to. And I've not done this before. I've used these at the end when I've got it off with wire wool and stuff. But anyway, let's have a look, see what we can do. No. That's not up to the job. Okay, let's do what I would normally do. And where's my spongy little... Oh, there it is. I've got one of these spongy little, very fine sandpaper jobbies. So that's what we were looking for. There we go. So I don't know if you can see the difference there. Yeah, of course you can. You can see it well. So what I'm going to do is just go around it all. And as I'm sanding, I will go back and I will polish it again, because actually I like this shiny finish and I don't want a matte finish. So there we go. So that's what it's going to look like. Won't bore you with me doing all this back and front, but I just wanted to give you an idea. But this is just a fine little sanding sponge, which is doing the job beautifully. To be fair, it is what I normally use, but I just thought I'd be a bit fancy and use a polishing cloth, but not up to the job, is it? Okay, so I'll go off and I'll do all around this little stone and on the back, and then I'll come back to you and show you what I've got. Might even polish it up before I come back. And then all we've got left to do is the tiny 2 little ambers. Right, we're nearly finished now. There it is, all shone up. I put the little, I haven't set those yet. I've put the little ambers in there. I'm just going to go off and set that. And what I'll do is I'll put it onto, I don't know, I'll put it onto a sweater or something, but I'll finish it all off and I'll pop a photograph in at the end. But there we go. That's basically it. It's taken me a lot longer than it should have done, but I've been fiddling around with it and I hadn't got a design in mind. I went with it, so that always takes you longer when you just go with the flow. But yeah, so there we are. I'll finish off setting those ambers, take you a little picture, and we'll call it job done, I think. There we go. Polo neck sweater that I think it'll look lovely on. So there it is, and I will take some photos rather than be the model that I'm not. But there it is.